Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Rise Up with Ivy and Calla. And I'm
Calla.
Calla.
You did that backwards. And I'm Ivy, and this is Calla. And welcome. And Rise Up with Ivy and Calla is where spirituality meets practicality.
Yes. So we are here today, and we have a special guest.
You know, I'm going to tell you, I couldn't think of a better person. I've had this opportunity to know our special guest for a few years now. And, you know, as she said earlier, we kind of keep each other like in check and be like, oh yeah, your wound up is like my wound up. Your family life is like my family life. So and her spirituality, it's funny. People will say, I'm the other Jamie and she's another Ivy. So I absolutely am so excited because last week we had some really great conversation.
Yes. Well, okay, so are you going to say her name?
Her name is Jamie.
Hello, Jamie. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. How are you, ladies? You look beautiful.
Thank you. And you look beautiful, nice and serene and relaxed.
And we look very vibrant in that.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce her, just basic. We don't have to go in depth about her resume and all that stuff. Just
okay, so she has a resume that's like this, but I'm going to tell you what I remember. Is a couple of years ago, a mutual friend of ours was getting married. Sai and I went to the wedding, and Jamie was actually emceeing the entire reception. And all of a sudden, this woman comes walking by, and I'm like, excuse me, I just need to tell you, I really like your necklace. And that we like kind of just connected, that energy. She's got this vibrancy, this sensuality, this confidence, this, put it this way, she is somebody that I told her, I wish I had that confidence. And, you know, because she's just amazing.
You're going to make me, making me tear up. Before, I appreciate that. And I need to do my own work on accepting accolades sometimes. You know, a lot of us just can't take those compliments. So it gets awkward, but much appreciated. And one fun fact, Ivy, about the day that we met, and you're so on point. You say I was emceeing and at the wedding to take care of the event. Fun fact is, the night before, I was just a guest. And, they said, you know, I know that you are an officiant for others, and is there any way you could help us with the rehearsal dinner? That turned into exactly what you saw, off the fly.
So real quickly, Jamie, so we're going to give you all your labels. You're a professional. You're a wife. You're a mom. You're a friend. You're a spiritual gangster. You're all of these things. And, you know, when we were talking about our conversation today, I specifically sent a picture when you had recently gone to Hawaii, a post that you had posted. And Calla, will you share that post?
So this is dated December 9th, 2023. New hair, who dis? Years of wearing a suit and being told to keep a conservative hair color style. Newsflash, the antiquated narrative that my hair color could somehow cancel out my credibility or capability is absurd. The fact that I believe nobody will take you seriously as the youngest or only woman on an executive team is absurd. Expressing and embracing authentic me is so liberating.
All the feelings right now. I have goosebumps all over.
Me too.
I think I'm very, very few times am I at a loss for words, but I just relived all of that. And I'm not sure at the time that I really was thinking all of this through, but it's liberation. It's coming into my own, where for so long I was equating my value to a title and people's feedback on that title. And then one day, somebody asked me one question, and I'll never forget it. As a mentor, I was asked, how do you do it? I always hear that you can have it all as a woman. You can be the best wife, the best executive, the best mom, the best. And I said, they lied to you. They lied to you. Inevitably, somebody in one of these compartmentalized areas is going to have to lose at times and win at others. And it was about getting real and getting honest in a time where the answer is always yes. How do we get there? Focused on winning. And I really, although everybody was telling me who I was, the more titles that I accumulated, the less I felt I knew who I was.
That's really interesting. I think that is so spot on with a lot of us. And I'm going to say men and women. We just can explain it from the women's side because that's who we are. But even, I will say for Jamie and I, our husbands are incredibly similar as well. But that the affiliations they have, it becomes who they are. And then, we talked last week, you and I, both of our youngest kids are going to college or they're going out in the world next year. And we're like, well, wait a minute. Who is that? Now, what am I going to do here? It was funny. Do you know why my hair is in pigtails today?
Why?
Because on our first broadcast, afterwards, someone near and dear to my heart was like, don't you think you're a little old for pigtails? So let me ask you a question. I already know Jamie's answer. Did you get all makeup up before here today?
Certainly, makeup for me. This is a scaled down version. I am guilty of being a glamazon at times or a diva. And this new me is not into that. So I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 4 or 5.
So let me ask you a question. So is it your authentic self that is the glamazon or the way you are perceived? Because I do think that's a fine balance because there are days, if we look good, we feel better. But who are we looking good for? Is it ourselves? Some days, if I don't want to get out of bed, I have to force myself. But it's almost like there is a perception in, we'll say, any kind of business, what we do, what she does, that you do have a certain look.
Yes.
You do have a certain presence. Could you imagine you and I being miserable people doing a podcast? Again, same concept. So how is it that you balance all of this or appear to make it where you got it all together?
That you just hit the nail on the head right there. How do you appear to make it look like I have it all together? The reality is, you and others are seeing my highlight reel of sorts, right? Social media and different pieces. Now, Ivy, over time, we have such a connection that I've entrusted you with my messy side, which is not my highlight reel. But I'm going to tell you, over time, there are days where even though I know I should get myself together and try to get into, some kind of normal clothing, I just can't. It's going to be sweatpants for the day. And realizing that I was safe, it was part of letting my guard down, because all of the hair from when I did the extensions at one time, or the tons of makeup, it's almost my protection from the world seeing me in any sort of way. Now you add that to many years. I can remember as a young child, we're talking, I don't want to date myself, but maybe the early 80s. And my grandmother, before she got her diagnosis with cancer, would say, you never leave the house without your lipstick, even if it's for the groceries. It was so just part of, like they say, children are learning from our actions and what we do more than our lessons that we're trying to spoon feed them. I became what I thought was the right show of a wife, of a put together woman, somebody who cared about herself. At times, that exterior did not match the interior.
And I can so feel that. When we were at the shop, we would talk with people and they'd be like, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all go through different phases at
Yes.
that time where we're like, who are we? And I'd say, take away your family. If you didn't have that family, who would you be? All right. We're looking for a job. Take away the job. Take away that. The only thing I could find, and I use this, is at the core of my being, I know I am love.
Fast.
And I begin to build on that because I love art, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't want to be seen as an artist, I wouldn't be on Facebook.
Correct.
So is it just for me, or is that validation? Goes back to what we talked about last week, is that personality, that ego. You really messed me up with that whole thing.
Well, if I may, can I interrupt and hijack things for a moment and ask both of you ladies, if I had to ask you, what is your best quality? Now, I'm not just talking professionally, from a friendship standpoint, professionalism, work, it could be anything. As a mother, as a professional, what would each of you say is your best quality?
My empathy.
Okay. I love that.
My heart, the empath. My heart is definitely, I feel, even if I make a mistake or I'm the jerk,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? My heart puts me in check.
Now, the reason I asked that is part of my own journey has been celebrating all of those pieces, like we just talked about, the empathy and forgiveness and those things that we too freely take for granted at times, because in doing my own shadow work and finding out what is authentic to me, I had to realize that many of those attributes were a direct result of trauma, of experiences that I kept repressed for good reason. No, we shouldn't keep reliving those dark moments. But just in the same way that we have to, come and acknowledge them and put them away, they need to be celebrated at times, because without those things, you two women would not have that empathy or ability to see past those tough circumstances. So at times when we say, God, I wish I didn't have to deal with these struggles, they have created such beautiful women in both of you.
100%, and to you as well. I have a question for you.
Oh boy.
So last week we had this conversation. All right. I do believe there's a big misconception on shadow work versus beating the hell out of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when, I'm sure as you saw it, one of the things that we discussed last week, and I think it is so important that three of us are here talking about this, is at what point are we not broken? Mm-hmm. We all know we're not broken, but we're constantly trying to fix ourselves.
Why can't I just be fixed? Why do I constantly have to be fixing something? I like me just the way I am.
As you should. And the answer, in my opinion, is right in between both of your perspectives. That I actually loved that episode. I watched it a couple hours ago. And the truth is, in acknowledging, so shadow work for me initially, because I was raised in a certain group and community, that was a dark place that you just don't mess with that stuff.
That's what we were talking about.
But in the same way, when we say your triggers, whatever is triggering you is the area that you want to do some reflection on. So if you innately just feel a certain way around certain people or an individual, you got to delve deeper and understand we are much of our lives on autopilot. Okay. We have this inner GPS that just leads us to the right direction. And that foundation was created, throughout our lives. Now, when we delve a little deeper and say, I cannot stand when somebody gets into my personal space and continues to press forth in a way that, in my opinion, is not rational. And I'm just using that as an example. Right. Where does that stem from? Now, I don't want to, we know from a clinical standpoint that all of these damages and the tough stuff we experience, every time we remember them and experience them again, you're injuring yourself. If you were to be scanned, your brain would light up the same way it did when the initial wound was being created. But in realizing, it's like learning your own direction without needing the GPS on all the time. So I will get that little reminder, Jaime Lee, you're getting frustrated or short-tempered because of ABC, and that stems from this experience. It's not a real, I don't believe anger is an emotion, in my opinion. And maybe to you guys, I'd love to hear your feedback. Anger to me is a result of fear, abandonment, shame, all of those things. So anytime I feel my version of anger, I want to do some reflection.
So one of the things that I will say to my clients is, have you ever seen a grown man or woman throw a temper tantrum like a 5-year-old? You have to go back and ask what happened at 5 years old and give compassion. But again, there's I don't have a problem talking about this. I've talked about it on before. I had sexual trauma as a young teenager, and my thought process on this is, how many flipping times do I have to go back?
You don't.
Because what we're taught in spirituality, did you see Vanessa Perry's thing today about toxic spirituality?
I did not.
And she was like, be careful of, and I'm paraphrasing, be careful of that toxic spirituality where it's always happy and everything is fantastic and yada, yada, yada. But there is that fake toxic spirituality that we're told. Now, I will encourage child work, but I will encourage it with a therapist and a holistic practitioner. So for me, when I realized at 46 years old why it happened to me, was, okay, I need to go heal my inner child so I can say it's okay. But if there is a trigger, do I have to continue to keep going back? Because to me, I feel like the more we go backwards, the more we're holding ourselves into that space, and we become that. Like, if we've made mistakes in our lives, we all know we have. Yes. I have one that comes to haunt me every now and again, and I said, I have to remember I am above that. I am no longer that person, and the more that I'm going back into that space instead of allowing me to be free from it,
that's it, Ivy.
Back in bondage.
You just touched on it. You just answered it for yourself. As opposed to, everything's energy, right? Whatever we're putting into the world, good, bad, or indifferent. That's where our energy is being exhausted at that moment. I always encourage others, you don't have to relive that whole moment, but rather retrain our brains, because our brain is a muscle, just like our intuition. We're constantly building it and trying to use more of it. I hope anyway. Some people are, but anyhow. Um, use it as more of a moment, a quick reset. We don't need to drive down the street, get out of the car, walk up to that door, open that door, go to the dark closet. And no, it's okay. I want you to imagine just driving by and waving, and that feeling of safety and how much you've evolved. Is there not some middle ground with these things? Or do we, I guess some of us are very cerebral and have analysis paralysis personally. So I don't know. How do you feel about it, guys?
I definitely think that there has to be a middle ground. There's just, you know, and I said it last week, you know, I'm to the point where, you know, I like who I am, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, and I've been through the shadows, you know. I've realized my triggers at that time when I was doing my own personal shadow work, realized what was triggering me the most. And it was those subjects that was affecting me physically, or were the ones that I needed to go ahead and research, figure out why this is affecting me so much. Why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? Those are the subjects that I chose to dive deeper in to figure it out. And now that I have gone back and accepted, like Ivy, yes, I was sexually abused as a child. And there's a lot of things that I've tucked away and didn't touch. And because that was done in the dark, you know,
Right.
You're not supposed to discuss it. You're not supposed to, you know, go back. And I didn't have, you know, I wasn't offered to speak to a professional.
Right.
That was just, you know,
The landscape has so changed.
yeah.
I mean, completely.
And so
That's part of it.
I had to figure it out. It wasn't until I was on my spiritual path that I was able to learn the tools to help myself and figure out why certain things are the way that they are, and my triggers, and how I see different people and the whys behind it. I've been there, done that. You know, I'm happy.
And I think that's what we need to get to, is letting people know you're not broken.
No.
We have some cracks here and there, but we're not broken. And good, bad, or ugly, we love each other and ourselves because of who we are. Jaime, I love that you are one of those people that get me more than anyone. I also love the fact that Calla is one that grounds me more than anybody. Do you know what I mean? But both of you have had experiences, good and bad, that have, as you said earlier, Jaime, that have made us who we are.
Yes.
We need to start celebrating. I actually really, really like that, how she said, you know, I want to go get a cake and candles. And
yes.
But really celebrate who we are, all of the mistakes.
Correct.
What word did we keep using last week? Failure.
Yeah.
I think that is the worst F word out there.
So oftentimes I utilize, it's called Fodden crystal. And that crystal is a tabular crystal, and it's called the healing crystal. And fun fact, whether it's a human bone or this crystal, every time it is broken and does the healing, it is now exponentially stronger. So when we have a bone fracture that heals over correctly, you now have a stronger area where you were broken. Think of how profound that is. Okay. All of these things that we've been taught, many of us, right? And I too, just like you ladies, have experienced the same traumas and things that not only did we not get, outside assistance with, but we were hushed and we carried this shame that didn't belong to us. Like something was wrong. We were dirty. We were flawed. And
Maybe I had an overactive imagination.
Some of us, correct. I think that is what triggered my need to be a perfectionist and to continue on with my career. And there was never a point prior to this new epiphany and spiritual awakening did I feel full. And by that, I mean my heart, my soul, my spirit. People were like, oh my goodness, I love the Aston Martin. Who has an Aston Martin? I'm like, yeah, it was great for one drive. The next week, I'm complaining that I don't have enough room in the car and it's not comfortable. You put in the Olympic sized pool. I'm complaining that I don't like to swim or the upkeep. What was missing in me was the ability to know that I'm okay, even though I'm broken and flawed, and people will still love me. And I have a journey, and it's to touch lives.
I think I don't know if the word is inspired. The thing that has motivated me the most is the fact that I have 3 girls who are watching every single thing that I do and how I respond. And they come to me for advice. And then I have my little grandchild, and I want her to inherit good. She doesn't have to sit here and inherit all the negative.
Yes.
We are a pretty awesome family when we are together. We have these good qualities, and that is what I want. She's going to have it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But, we're going to concentrate on the good.
But that goes back to reprogramming and you starting and influencing, the girls, and now them influencing your granddaughter, and you influenced it. Because think about it. I know all 3 of us, so I know there's a lot of other people. We here, we got to fix this generational ancestral trauma. Okay, we got to fix this generational ancestral trauma, which brings that trauma back to life. To me, this is just my thoughts. I could be completely wrong. It's giving it energy and feeding it instead of saying, we need to, okay, how about we inherited some really strong, like one of the things I love about Calla, you talk about strong women, a family. Like, I love to go over there because I learned different things from her daughters. I have a house full of boys, as you and I have spent many a days talking about.
Boy, mom. Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing. But even that, think about it, we've had to deal with addiction in our family history. So I have that conversation with the boys, say, you have a propensity for addiction. I want you to be careful. But I don't recall ever saying you have a propensity to have this beautiful heart to make. You know what I mean? This
but
came
you're
from
cognizant
your grandfather.
of that. You're cognizant. You are now putting that together. And to your point, Calla, imagine if you, when you were going through the most influential moments, had a you to love and mentor and hug it and hold, and to know that it was going to be okay. I like to, I liken it to a destination. They're ancestral maps of sorts, right? We have gone this far. Why wouldn't we provide the next generation those directions so they don't have to fight all those battles alone?
Because they don't listen to us anyway.
Who can I get it louder for the people in the back here?
Right. But seriously, it's like you said, though, isn't it? What is that phrase about planting a seed? You know, they may not hear you today, but at least planting that seed.
One of my daughters, we were together this weekend, and she was trying to decide something. She says, all I keep hearing is you in my head, blah, 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 blah. And now I can't make that decision. Now I can't decide because all I hear is you in my head. And so they're listening.
They are listening. They're watching every part of this journey. And Ivy, I always, and I'm going to remind you right now, whether we're live or not, be gentle with yourself. You don't, so I can tell each one of us, obviously, we talk about this. We all see the world through our own lens based on what we've been through. You are far too hard on yourself. And you are so gracious with everyone else. Why? There's days I just want to shake you and go, Ivy, you don't live there anymore. Come back.
You know, it's funny. I am going to say this, and like, this is one I hope my dad doesn't watch, because I don't want him to think back and be like, so my dad never spanked us as children.
Right.
Like, I can assume, the only thing I can assume was that, oops, sorry about that, that he, you know, might have, because of the generation.
Mm-hmm.
But what he would say is, you know, sis, you disappointed me. I know, I can tell you, for me, it took me till I was 42 when I actually said to my dad, Daddy, I love you, but if I'm a disappointment, that's on you. It's no longer on me. But do I really mean that? There's the thing. I can say that.
No.
But do you really mean that? Because, you know, I'm grateful for these little things that seem monumental in my life that have happened. Because exactly what you said, you know, we are there for other people, and it's hard to speak their language if we don't understand it. And if we're going to have gone through it, at least there's a positive outcome.
A reason. That's exactly it. Now, for me, that's the little bit of celebration, because by stuffing anything down or not going to that place, I feel that it's inauthentic. And as crazy as it sounds, and that's for me, everybody's journey is different. I want to emanate an energy in a safe place for people who need to get those deep, dark secrets out, that are having trouble processing. And that's not going to be everybody's thing, right? As healers, some people, Ivy, you are amazing at your style of teaching me, is letting me talk myself through it, going, stop. Did you hear what you just said, Jamie? And then it's like, light bulb moment. I don't know what it is, but my family will tell you there is just an energy where I'm okay. I'm not a dark person. I love levity. I love smiling, but I'm okay. If you need to unload that heavy, heavy load, I can shoulder it and then celebrate my ability to do so, because I've been there. I've been through the darkness, and I'm able to still be light when it should have crushed me and killed me. For me personally, that is my fight song of sorts. There's nothing that can break me. This is part of my journey. So that's how I see it. And the moment I was able to do that, now think about it, ladies. We've been in a dark place for a second talking about this, but did you ever imagine, even 20 years ago, that you would be having this conversation, 10 years ago, having this conversation about these things on a public platform?
No.
Not a bit. And if you would see the things that she's got me to say on here, you would understand. Like, I mean, I don't call Winkies. I can actually use big girl words now. So
you and I have that in common.
We talked about that.
Are we talking about naughty, no spots?
You know, and I also think that has to do, Jamie, with we both are boy houses.
Mm-hmm.
If we were had girl houses,
yeah,
you might, because of what because of what I went through, making sure that my daughter was able to, or able to understand that that's not a negative.
But stop right there, Ivy. I don't mean to interrupt, but that just struck me because we usually agree on this. Did you just say that because we have boys, we're operating differently than raising girls? Are we acknowledging that?
I will tell you, when it comes to private parts, yes, ma'am. I mean, like, I've had the conversation about safety and stuff, and there's a bug flying around. But yes, that's when I leave and Cy comes in.
There's still an ongoing joke in this house with my boys. My oldest is 27, and they would not appreciate this, but I'll leave it brief. At the time, as a single mom, they're teenagers, and I know, right? I'm like, should I talk about condoms? What should I do? And at the time, there's still Barnes and Nobles, and there was this book. And now I'm not looking to have this whole cringy situation. And I know they know, but as a mother, like, I'm trying to do some damage control. I shoved the book under the door. Tell me you're too young to have children without telling me you're too young. And I left it there. And I hadn't gone through every page. I made sure through other parents' reviews it was credible. Can I tell you, this day, they're like, Mom, you're talking cringy. It had cartoon characters with, naughty nose and crayons. And you just put it under our door and run away? Not my finest moment.
I will say, I think we all have those kind of things. Like when, we've got boys that are getting one of them just got a girlfriend, and I was like, Sai, you got to have a conversation. I'm not having this conversation. Like, I don't have that part. Like, I understand. But again, that goes back to who we are. Growing up, my mom did not talk about that. It was not discussed. Close your ears, people who don't want TMI. But when you're trying to figure out what to do with a tampon and it's a super plus and you're 13 years old.
No, that is fact. Well,
it became a really shy thing. So when we look at how far I've come, yes, we're pretty good at that.
So I think I've gotten to the point, both sides, because I have a niece, and like, you have to use the right words. I don't want another generation going, TT told me it's my naughty no spot. Like, come on. But there's this desensitized moment that you go through as a mom of adults, where boys anyway, in my opinion, where now we can laugh about it, and I don't cringe every time they say, talk about. I still almost innately went SCX. Like, stop it. Who am I? And that goes back to the beginning. I now realize I am so different depending on who you would ask. The people at work who don't know my husband or my background always used to say, yeah, you must be fun. If you ever let your hair down, you deserve a glass of wine. Do you even drink or go out to events? And I was like, oh, well, from time to time. Have a great weekend. Now I'm HR, right? To others in those photos, they're like, oh, is that your husband? Is he part of that biker club, or using other names? And that's when I embraced the spiritual gangster, because my 22 different worlds, from being a football mom, classroom mom, a professional, nonprofit, my husband, they didn't collide well. And people, being people, wanted to start their own narrative that it wasn't possible for that same person that they have known for 20, 30 years, and they know my values and trust me implicitly with their children and money, anything. Now, because of one decision, I was now in a new world of the gangster world.
But
And I wanted to just use that and throw it out there. Yeah, I am a gangster. I'm badass spiritual gangster.
And I'm going to say this. I think you have helped me through this, as my husband has also joined that. And I, balancing the Psy from the shop versus the Psy with his brothers versus the Psy as the family man. I was even struggling trying to figure out who I was, because we were, I can remember that conversation when you and Christian came down to the shop, when we opened up the shop and we had those conversations. You and I talked a lot about it, because it's amazing how many people think because of who my husband is or what they believe he is, it's not even the truth, that it discredits some of who we are. And I don't know about you, but I'm not defined by my husband. I'm really not. I am defined as a mom. I am defined as a wife. But their choices. I think one of my favorite things that I tell people now, and I tell it all the time because it took me a long time to learn this,
right,
was Sai and I are on two completely different journeys. We just choose to journey together to better each other.
So you are so right on. So right on. And not that we ever want to, go down this road, but me being the intellectual and having analysis paralysis, I'm like, are our paths too different? Imagine if I had a Jaime to support me in the world. How do I support in his world without overstepping? And as I explain to others, it's really, I try to make it simplistic and say, look, imagine you joined a dance team. You want your significant other to come to the recitals and cheer you on, but that's about it, right? I think that's the healthy dose, but the truth is there are some that stigma, their perception of what that means, the taking from my integrity or my morals, or somehow implying that they can because of that, still is, there we go, triggered. Here we go, ladies.
Yeah, but that truly, I think, when it comes to who our authentic self is, it's what we believe to be. Because, okay, so I'm in this weird place of everything is an illusion. Because as I sit next to you, you see me in one way. You see me in one way. My kids see me in one way.
Yes.
My husband sees me in one way. My bosses see me in one way. I don't have 10 different personalities. But
it's true.
Does it go back to the whole thing where you blew my mind, which is, and I love when that happens, when you get so struck by something that you just,
it resonates
and you keep thinking about it, and every day it does. Is our personality our ego? Personality, not who we are innately, but what we bring out.
I don't think so. I think for some people it could be. I don't think for either one of you. I'm sure ego is involved in much more than anyone wants to admit, in my opinion. But when I'm looking at either one of you and we're interacting in this way, I don't feel like it's ego driven. I feel like it's safe spot and you're being authentic. Now, back at work when I'm, addressing if 500 people in a room and I'm sitting with or walking up to the White House and you see those photos and I look so awkward. If you know me and you know my energy, I just look and I don't even, that person doesn't even resonate to me. And I feel like I'm not the same person I was yesterday, 5 years ago. If you haven't talked to me in 10 years, sis, we don't even know each other. That's the way. Okay. What do you ladies think? Some things, I've had the same core group. I've been blessed in that way. 30 something years of friendship when I moved to that area. And we're in each other's weddings and, and not just women, men, women, different backgrounds. But I see a lot of people who don't have that. And for me, at times, I'm not going to lie, not that it's judgment, but I look at others and I wonder, you don't have any support or other people. Why is that? It's always something that triggers the inquisitive side. Is it because you've been hurt or you've been moved out of circles? Like, I innately just want to
Some of us
wrap them all. Yeah.
abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to, because I have a very small group,
Mhm.
a couple of others, but I think it comes back to part of our traumas. And unfortunately, when we look at defining ourselves and our authenticity, we tend to put those traumas as who we are. Not that not that these things have happened or that we experienced them, but that we become one. How many times have you heard me say I have abandonment issues?
Yes.
But why can I intervene? Because that triggered. This is my thing. And if I may, go ahead and be truly authentic right now. Like,
here we go.
if we're on the telephone and I'm about to trigger a lot of people. So who viewers out there, please, I know it's my first time here. Please don't hate me after I say this. Or maybe, I don't know. I believe that our society was built on the ideology of creating victims so that we have bonds and, unspoken ties, and we have an excuse for not fulfilling our true potential, for not continuing to build and grow. And in doing such, it allows all of us to somehow be controlled, and there's those divisive lines, but you've got your groups, and I see it all the time, whether it's SA and you find out another person is in that group. It's like, you just understand each other. People that grew up in one part of New York over another, Democrats to Republicans. And I don't do party affiliations. I just don't do it. I won't do it. But are we trying to continue living in that victim mindset, or are we trying to empower and grow?
And I think this is a really good way to kind of bring our conversation to a close, because it does leave it open for another conversation at some point. But is it that we're victimizing ourselves, or is it that we are pointing fingers at others? So we're deflecting that rather than having 3 fingers pointing back at us.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about remembering who, again, we are and why, because I do believe a lot of what you're saying. And I think, it goes back to last week. Remember when we were talking about, I said, I think I procrastinate if I go to the deep down, what is it, when I can get things like this. And I'm not saying that it's completely true. It's something I'm working through right now. You have control to bring down the chaos.
Truth.
So is it a control? Is it this? So I think
Controlled burn per se?
do what? Say,
A controlled burn per se?
right. So if you had one last thing to tell somebody who is new or even who has been on this, who is struggling to really look at who they are and find their authentic self, what piece of advice would you give them? Where should they start?
That's a great question. They should start at their truth, and not the truth that we've recited and the truth we think people want to hear, but the truth. And how many times have you been in that space where I can't go another moment, another breath, and you did, and you look back and reflect, and it seems so trivial and silly now.
It does.
You are a collection of those moments, and you are going to persevere for sure.
Well, Jaime Lee, I can't thank you enough for being really our first guest, our first big guest of the season, and that is kind of turning things for us. I hope that we can have you back. I could sit here and talk forever.
It's my pleasure.
Very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And like I said, she's like, that'll be a one and done. We're done with you, lady.
Not at all. Again, it's because you are authentic. And that's what we want to build here at Rise Up with Ivy and Calla, where
spirituality meets practicality.
Woo!
Have to go back and bringing it to the truth. And remember, Wednesdays, wherever you listen to your podcast, or
you will hear us. You can watch us on Facebook,
YouTube,
on YouTube, everywhere.
Wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
We're there. Thank you all so much for joining us.
And many blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.